Hello, it's Phillip Taylor from Richmond Green Chambers. I'm reviewing the new edition of Craies on legislation. It's the 9th edition by Daniel Greenberg. The interesting thing about this edition, and I've put a written review on the internet, and I've called it Craies Justifies the Statutes 100 Years On. This is quite an old book, but it's a very relevant book for this particular time. The distinguished Edwardian, W.F. Craies, launched the first edition of the book about 100 years ago, and it was founded on something called Hardcastle on Statutory Law, which Lord Brown-Wilkinson, in his excellent commentary, says it's been with us from the beginning of English law, and although the emphasis of judgments varies over the years, give or take a little, the basic principles remain much the same, and that is of course true. He then actually goes and contradicts himself, because the problem is, he says, obviously this is a splendid piece of legal expertise which actually guides professionals through the various kinds of primary and subordinate legislation that we have, obviously very much with the 21st century in mind. This is one of the reasons why it made Lord Brown-Wilkinson recant fairly swiftly, because obviously the problem we have is the making and constructing of legislation has fundamentally altered in about the last 30 years, and so therefore the new edition of Craies sets us on the best path, in my view, for the future. It's effectively an essential work for all those who are involved in the legal and the political processes. I should imagine the House of Lords would be interested at the present time, because what it does is it provides a practical guide in 32 chapters split into 5 particular parts with a judgment extract which is useful. And what it does, it gives an understanding and an application to legislation of all kinds. In addition to that, it gives a very practical series of pieces of information about the legislative process itself, which would be great use for, obviously, for students, undergraduates and so on. What Mr. Greenberg has done is probably by far the best, most constructive reassessment of this book, and he is the best choice, of course, to edit it. He's got a distinguished background as a parliamentary draftsman at the office of the Parliamentary Council, and he's deployed the sort of skills we need here, because what we find, obviously from his work on Stroud, is the same sort of brilliant detail which in fact we've come to expect. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the book because it's actually quite a heavy book. There's a lot of useful contemporary guidance in it, which I've set out in some detail in the written reviews. What I'd like to say is that Greenberg's formidable task in explaining where we are today has been a great success. He's been able to explain what we have with modern legislation and how it's being executed with a masterly command of the subject matter throughout. And as Lord Brown-Wilkinson has said in complimenting the book, he comments that it's been written by a man with a profound and perspicacious knowledge of his subject, and that it will be indispensable. The fact is, it is, and it's well worth reading if you've never come across it before. It's published by Thomson Reuters, and I certainly find it of great use myself in trying to understand what some of the parliamentarians have got up to with the legislative process. Do get it if you can. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.